Good morning, everyone. Beth here from CornerPiece Studio. I hope you all had a good night's sleep last night. It is Wednesday, thank goodness. You can hear my birds outside. It's going to be another beautiful day today. Thank you for being here. If you're here for the first time, welcome. If you like what you see, please like and subscribe so you see future content. If you're returning, thank you so much for coming back. And I have a couple new subbies. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I really appreciate you being part of my channel. So today I'm going to show you how I do things with book pages. Here's the book block that I took from here. And there's lots of different things that you can do with a book block. I actually marked a couple of mine because I like the texture of the pages for these different things. Okay, so gluing. I have this one book block for gluing. It's thinner, more flimsy pages, and the color is more white. You can see the difference in the color of the papers here. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Those are perfect for things for making ephemera. Absolutely perfect. And the pages don't break. They fold, but they don't break. They're not brittle enough to break yet. So that's a good paper for that. None of these are too brittle, because I would not be using them for anything. This is almost close to that, but I'm using it as a stamp-off book because I like to have more words to a page. This is a play of some sort, so I like to have more words to a page. So, and these stamp-offs, I'll use them. I'll use it somehow as ephemera somewhere along the way. So that one says stamp off, so I know what I'm doing with these. And this one says buttons. I love making buttons. I'll probably use this for buttons and for tags. I should put tags on here too, just because of the color of the paper, the weight of the paper. It's a heavier, you can hear the difference in the paper. Nothing to that one. More weight and more tooth to this one. This one's a little more slippery. This one offers a little more resistance. And this one is kind of in between. So it's sort of in between. The paper, it's in between the two. So for my ephemera in my books, I like to use the heavier one because I know it'll be a little more stable. So that's what I have done with these. I use, like, that one's for gluing. You glue on it, it gets nasty, take the page off. This one will be used for ephemera and stamping off and just actual different book pages in books because it's in German. I don't have many books that are in a different language. So that German one came from here. And in translation, it means, as far as my feet will carry me. This was a gentleman who was escaped from war-torn Poland, and it's his story of his escape. So I want to read that one. Okay, so what I have done to prepare is I have glued pages together. This one is for buttons. These are for, tags. Now how I do this is I get my glue stick. I get a good glue stick, something that's going to hold pretty well. I like using Elmer's All-Purpose for this. I do not like using school glue. Elmer's school glue. The papers don't stay for long. They come apart. Sometimes they just, once it's dry, they just peel right apart. So I don't use Elmer's school glue. Okay, so if you can get your pages apart. I like leaving them in the book block because they're not all over the place then. Okay, so you open the first page. Get your glue stick uncovered. And then glue right up against the spine. And make sure you get right to the edges. What I should do is put a piece of wax paper here so it doesn't stick to the next page. And then just make sure you cover the page well. Edges. You may not be too concerned about your edges because you'd be cutting it. So that's up to you. It's up to you. But me, I like to get to the edges because you never know what you're going to do. Then use a scraper and put it down. All right, so this is going, once this dries, it'll dry like this. This is this is 1, 2, 3 pieces of paper. So I'm going to do that one more time because I want a nice sturdy tag. So open it up, go up to the, make sure you go to the spine and your edges. Yes, make sure you got something underneath, whether it's deli paper or piece of magazine or wax paper. Put it underneath so it doesn't get the next pages. And then press it down again and scrape it down. Okay, so this is going to take a little bit to dry. That's why I prepared a couple beforehand. And then I just pull off. There we go. Nice and solid. It comes out nice and solid. Okay, I'm going to put that aside. Now, how I do my buttons is I put this under the piece of paper. I put glue on the top of it. You don't have to pull anything up. This is how I do my buttons. You can do them any way you want, but I like to do it this way because I get my book page, the book print edge here. If you want your buttons with the paper edge, that's fine too. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this. I'm going to try to get the edge of the book page, the words, the print to print. That's why this looks a little uneven. It's not right to the edge. Because if I did it to the edge, the book print would have been off. I'd like to use as much as possible. That's just me. All right, and then you press it down. All right, that's a little flimsy. So what I'm going to do it again. And I dropped it. That's okay. I'm going to do it again. And you notice that this is the beginning of a chapter. I like to, it'll be hidden, so you're not going to see the lack of words here. Okay, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to try to bring my words to the edge. And press it down. And press it down. And then remove it. Now these two pieces that I just created, what I'm going to do, you notice that this one, I didn't see that when I did it. I would have folded it the other way. That's okay. I'm going to put this one on the top. Then you won't see it. So I'm going to cover this with glue. Go to the edges again, this way. You be sure things won't separate after they're dried. Blobs. Get the blobs off. Put this corner to corner, edge to edge. You don't have to be precise because you end up punching it anyway. There's my gluing one. Here it is. You're going to end up punching it anyway. And then you just give it a good sturdy scrape. And then you put it aside to dry. And then you put it aside to dry. Okay. So while they're drying, I'm going to use them at another point. So what I'm going to show you now is how I create my buttons and my tags. Okay, for starters with the buttons, what I use, and no, I don't sit and cut every little circle. I have a 5/8 inch punch that I use. There it is, 5/8 inch punch. I turn it upside down. I've got the cover off it so I can see what I'm doing. And I just pop. You pop as many as you want. I'm just going to do 5 now. This would make a cool template. If you keep this, this would make a cool template for when you're using your inks. Now, you check and see which side. You don't need to check and see which side is up or down right now. Now I'm taking a different hole punch. I have a hole punch that is very tiny. It is probably the size of a bookmaker's needle. There's a couple different ways that you could poke holes. You can use this, which I like. You can use your awl, which will go through the paper. It'll go through. Just have to make sure you don't poke yourself on the other side. You can also use your bookbinding needle and poke holes. See, any of these ways is good. Or I use this little punch to poke holes. I'm going to use my little punch to poke holes. Just take your button and figure out whether you want 2 holes or 4 holes. This book here that I created, I made buttons this way. I used the 2 holes, and then I used floss and then just tied some knots on my floss, and then glued them down. That's how I made these buttons. I also used my vintage photo to ink around the edges of these buttons, just to add a little more aging to them. I like that aged look. You can paint on your paper before you punch them out. You can color on your paper before you punch them out. You can do anything you want. 1, 2. See, there's 1. It's all punched out. There's 1 button already made. So you can take your ink and just age it a little if you want. Oops, wrong side. Age it a little. You can then take some of you can use string, you can use floss. This is some sort of an in-between sort of yarn thread. I don't know. So then you take your needle, you go in the front to the back, from the back to the front, pull the needle off, make that long end a little shorter, and then just tie a knot. I tie a square knot, right over left, left over right. And then trim your ends. Trim your ends. And there we go. That button's complete. And it's ready to be used somewhere. You don't have to put the thread in there, or yarn in there, or floss in there. You don't have to. I like to. It just adds a little bit of something to it. Makes it look finished. Makes it look like it's sewn to your piece of work. Like these, they look like they're sewn on, but they're not. They just have a little bit of color through the buttonholes, and then they're glued on. I used a hot glue gun to glue them on because I wanted them to stay. So that's how I do my buttons. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a couple tags out of this one. I like that. So I'm going to get my scissors, and you can do this one of two ways. Get my tearing ruler. Get a ruler. This one's a metal ruler. You don't have to use a metal ruler. You can use a plastic ruler, whatever you have. And I'm going to just tear this edge off because I want the print on my tag. I want the print on it. So I'm just tearing the edge. I'll save the edge for something else. I might pop buttons. I might stamp words on that and use that on something else. Okay, so that's that. All right, here's this. This is 4 inches wide by just about 6 5/8 tall. It's going to make a nice size tag. You can cut this down and make smaller tags if you want. I'm going to make one big tag for starters. Tags have an angle cut out of them. So I cut one side, I take it, turn it over, and move it to the other side. This is one way that you can be sure to have your cut edges very similar. Also, when you're using book page, I had this once. When you're using book page, please be sure you don't have any offensive wording on the pages. Just something to keep in mind, because I had some offensive wording once pop out on my pages, and I needed to quickly think of what I wanted to do with it, and I either painted over it or collaged over it. After all this work you've done, and you're looking at it and you're like, oh my, it's right in the middle of the page, and you need to figure out what to do with it. So that's what I did. I just I painted over it, in fact. And speaking of painting on book page, I love painting on book page. That's going to be the next thing I show to you. Let's finish this first. So the tag, what I like to do, I'll embellish it, I'll put stuff on it. Then I'll either take it to my sewing machine or get a black marker out and just run along and make it look like there's stitch marks on it. There's just dashes. Some people like to do solid lines. Some people like to put dots in the middle. I even have a stamper, a set of stamps that make stitched lines. So you can do put it on here any way that you want. It just makes it look a little more finished. See there? Just looks a little more finished. I'm not sure the journal that I'm going to use this in yet, so I'm not going to embellish it just yet. So I also want to add a little bit of a tassel or something to the top. I have some tea-dyed bed sheet that I made. I cut them at 1-inch strips. And then I rolled them. I saved these rolls from ribbon and rolled it onto here. So I have it to use when I want it. So what I'm going to do, this is a little wide for me. I don't want it that wide. So I'm going to just slit it and tear it. There. And then, okay, I'm showing you how to do these things if you don't have extra hole punchers. And I have this puncher that makes, let me show you. It makes that sort of a punch in it, which is cool for putting your ribbons and stuff through, but I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to show you how to do it if you don't have these things and you don't want to use these things. You can glue this. It might not stay too well, so get your stapler out and staple it. If you don't like the look of that, you can always put washi tape to it, or you can glue a button to it. Look at that. Doesn't that look cool? Just glue a button to it. So I think that's what I'll do. I'll glue the button to it. Get a glue that works and sticks. I'm going to use my, maybe, to open it up. There we are. I'm going to use my art glitter glue. You don't have to have all these different glues and things. I went a little crazy when I first started, and I have all this stuff, as do many of us. So I'm going to push that down. It's not taking. So that one's not taking. So next I'm going to bring out the big guns. I'm going to bring out Fabrifix. This is a great one to have in your glue stash because it holds really well. It sticks paper to paper, paper to fabric, fabric to fabric. It holds all sorts of stuff. There we go. Now it's not moving. Should have used that in the beginning. See, art glitter glue doesn't really stick all that well to the fabric, so that's why I had a problem. So that is ready to be used in a journal. I would embellish it. One other thing I like to do is to round my corners. I'm just going to use my corner rounder on this. Here's one. I'll have to trim that with the scissors. Because when you go putting these things in and out of books, I like to round the corners because when you're putting things in and out of your books, they kind of get bent and the corners get mushed. So there you go. That tag is all ready and it has a button on it. All right, one more thing. Let's see what time it is. Okay, one more thing I wanted to show you. So let me get this book. I'm going to take this book page, make sure there's no offensive words on it, because it's from a Hemingway book, I think. Sometimes he was a little explicit with things. Clear my workspace here a little bit. Okay, I like to use watercolor on here. You can use anything you like on here. I like to use watercolor. Oh, I just wanted to tell you, when you're, one more thing before we move on to that. Where's my paper here? You can also use different shape punches when you make your buttons. Here's, oops, there's a butterfly one. Butterfly went flying. You can punch holes in that. I also have a, let me get this off, because I don't want that. I want the words. That's just me. I also have a flower. This is a cherry blossom punch. Look at that. Isn't that cool? That would make a neat button too. So you can use any of your paper punches. It doesn't have to be circles. You can make big ones, big buttons. You can make smaller buttons. I haven't done the big ones yet, but that would be fun. Okay, so I have my watercolors here. Let's get some of these punches out of the way. Scissors out of the way. I have some watercolors here. I love, love, love my watercolors. One of my favorite colors is vermilion, which is right here. I'm going to use this. I'm going to just paint something on here. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to look like anything, because what you do afterwards is add some pen to it once it's dry. So suggestion when you're doing this, if you want to glue this to be part of a tag, when you're gluing your papers together for a tag, paint the top piece first before you glue, because if you paint after you glue, it's going to come apart, because your most glue sticks, unless you're using a purple one, most glue sticks are water soluble, so they will come apart. They will come apart. So then you let this dry. And after it's dry, you can add your lines to it. And make it look like what you want. So I'm going to add a little bit of, now you can't, I'm going to add some green here, but I have to make sure I don't pull it into the red, because, or get too close to the red, because it will bleed into it, and I don't want that. So I'm just going to add things that look like leaves and let that dry. What I will do is, after it's dry, I will add my pen marks, and then I will put a picture on my community page to show you what it looks like. Now, one last thing real quick. One of my most favorite things to do with book page. Put this somewhere to dry. Put it flat. There it goes. My most favorite thing to do with book page is to make masterboards. Oh my goodness. I love making masterboards. All right, cool. Masterboards are where you just glue papers onto a piece of paper. This is one way. This is one way you can use up book pages. You can use up any kind of book pages. You can use up book pages. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just tear the book page into little pieces. This is the first step in creating your masterboard. It's just to tear your pieces. You can leave big pieces. You can have little pieces. I don't like this, so this is going to go off the edge, and when I'm done, I'm going to cut it. So, now look at this. You can see when I tore it, you can see the rough edge. If you don't want to see that, if you want your edge to look like this, when you're tearing, you need to tear the piece towards you that you want to have the nice edge, because the other edge won't be so nice. It's up to you. It doesn't matter. When you're doing things with book pages, it really doesn't matter. So I'm just going to leave these here. I'm going to get my glue stick. I'm going to use a different glue stick. I'm going to use a little more cheaper glue stick. And you just add glue to your paper. This is a piece of two-sided scrapbook cardstock that I don't like. So I'm just going to use it, and I'm going to just cover it. Yes, I glued that spot up there. I did something I didn't want to do. I put glue down in the area where I want my paper, and then put the paper on. And then just use your scraper to make sure the paper adheres to where you want it. So this is, I don't want that, so I'm going to take that off. So add some glue to this area and put it on. Masterboards don't take all that long to create. They are fun to create, and they are so useful because you can cut them up to make tags. You can cut them up to, you can do all sorts of stuff with it. ATC cards, artist trading cards, which are 2.5 by 3.5. This could be your base for your trading card. Just anything you want, any way you want. You can make bookmarks with it. Now I'm becoming a little particular because I don't want these on here, because I'm going to the middle of the paper now, and I don't want that on there. Sorry, I'm just looking for a different sort of book page. Okay, here we go. Just getting some different sort of words on here. You can add as many different sorts of book pages together here that you want. And yeah, I've got some blanker spaces. I'm not too keen on that. You can stamp into that. You can just not paint into it, but color onto it at some point. You could paint, but you really, like I said, you got to be careful because paint will pull glue stick up. So you can splatter on this with your paints. You do anything you want. So I'm gonna just do one more little section here. So what I'm going to do is I will finish this masterboard off camera, and then we'll do another one to show you how I embellish my masterboards, what I do to add to them before I cut them. Because you do all sorts of stuff. You put stickers, you can stamp, you can paint, you can add other color paper to it. If you have scrap papers, I have a whole bin of scrap papers here, I can add to it. So, all right, so for now we're going to stop. This video has been on for a little bit. We need to stop. Okay, let's just recap on what we did. I will finish this master board in another video so you can see. We made buttons with our book page. Here's some that are not done yet, but we made buttons. We made a tag with the book page, painted on book page. I'm going to draw on it next. And you can make masterboard with book page. So there's a lot of different stuff that can be done with book page. So I will come back and I will have this all covered, and then I will show you how I embellish this before, or I add to it. I add some more layers to it before I cut it. Okay, so if you like what you saw here today, yes, you saw a lot. Thank you for hanging out with me and watching all this. I'm thrilled that you were here. So these are some things that you can do with book page. If you come up with some other ideas, let me know. You can make beads. You can. It's just a whole bunch of stuff you can do. So for now, you all have a great Wednesday. I will be back later to finish working on some of this stuff after things have dried. And I'll show you what goes from there. So for now, have an awesome day. If you like what you saw, please like and subscribe. And I will see you later. Take care now.